basically you're going to have a couple options for the tank. Most people, I would say 90+% of the systems are installed using concrete tanks. There are good poly tanks available. They're manufactured by the Infiltrator tank. Infiltrator makes a two-part tank. Those are available. We generally prefer concrete. It's more durable, more robust. The Infiltrators work well for the backyard settings, the tough accesses, those type. Basically with the Infiltrator, there are more concerns with regard to making sure your backfill is very carefully done. Fill the tank as you go. I know the installation instruction for the concrete tanks also recommend that you fill the tank as you backfill it. Yeah. Basically, we go through our standard installation instructions. Make sure you have a smooth, level surface on the bottom. If it's stony soil, make sure that you put some sand or crushed rock at the bottom. And basically, one critical thing that I like to mention is that when you come out of your tank, make sure that this doesn't come out and turn prior to settling on native soil. This picture doesn't show it real clearly, but typically you come out of a tank into another tank. You want to make sure that pipe coming out rests on native. So if it's resting on the open and there's a joint and you angle it over, it's going to settle. You'll have problems with settling. Yeah,
water, break.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems that can come from that. So,
do you know if sound placement makes a tank for this?
Yeah, sound placement does make. Okay. Yeah, so they make.
That's why I buy all my tanks.
Yeah,
I don't care for plastic tanks.
Yeah, they do. Sound placement does. And there is in Graham, as you go up to Gig Harbor, Evergreen Precast does tanks up there. So basically, make sure that this guy is vertical and level on your outlet. One thing of note when you're using a poly tank, the use of the poly tank, the outlet is marked as inlet because it's plumbed backwards to get the baffle walls to line up the way it needs to be. The manufacturer, wherever you buy it from, should know that, and they should have it all pre-plumbed, but keep that in mind if you ever use the plastic tank. Anyway, so we'll go through installation of components. We want to read the equipment parts list provided in the owner's manual and verify the required parts are on site. Basically, you want to make sure all these parts are there, and then don't install damaged components. We want to make sure this linear blower, which here's your linear blower, this should be installed within 50 feet of the actual tank location. And so we have on the airdrop coming from our blower, typically you'll have on most of the concrete tank suppliers, they'll have this on the top of the tank. This isn't so clear on the picture, but you can see the top of the tank actually straddles this blower housing, which is a 24-inch blower housing. It's cast on the top of the lid. You'll see a little small dot there and a bigger dot. Those are points where our 1/2 inch and our 1 inch pipes drop through the lid. So when you get the tank, you're going to see this tank is not going to have typically these risers installed. It'll just have adapter rings. So before you install the adapter rings, you'd reach down into there and you'll feel a coupler. So if you did it right, you'd feel something like this would be underneath the tank. So you reach down there, you find that coupler, it might have a piece of tape on it, and that's where you'll glue your 1/2 inch PVC here and then elbow over to the point where you can come down vertically down to this point. And that would be for our sludge return side. And for our main side, you're reaching down through the larger opening, and you should be able to just reach in there, and you'll fill that coupler there, and then you'll just affix your 1 inch PVC over to a point which will allow you to do your airdrop 3 inches or so off the side of the tank there. One thing we used to always run these through the risers, and that was on paper it looked better, but this is so much better to not have those riser perforations and the grommets. This eliminates the grommets, gets everything nice and watertight. What was your question?
So just quick question. This is the recirc line that throws sludge back, correct?
Right.
And then what kind of pump are you running down here?
So this is a sludge return. So I didn't describe. So what we have is, I'll do just a quick image. If you blow air, picture this being a 1 inch standpipe coming all the way up here.
Okay.
We're blowing air into a point that's, if you do the subtraction here, we have 4 inches off the floor and 12 inches. So we have 8 inches of difference here. We blow air into this standpipe, the air wants to lift
Okay.
because the bubbles rise,
Yeah.
right? So it creates a vacuum.
I see.
So when this digester stops, and when the blower stops blowing here and it blows over to here, all this mixing, agitating this light brown colored waste,
Yeah.
this cloud of waste will settle.
Make more sludge.
It'll become more like sludge, but it'll actually recirculate that settling solids back to the trash chamber.
Okay.
So it's this regeneration, recirculation process.
That makes sense.
And so it's the science behind
Blowing
how
air.
blowing air up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you picture this guy here, if you took this guy off, this guy might decide that this is the path of least resistance, and these bubbles might come out this way.
Yeah.
Versus we have the right amount of distance here.
It wants to.
It wants to go up. Right.
Smart.
And it'll I haven't put a meter on it, but I'm guessing it's in the neighborhood of 2 gallons per minute will come back with that air return.
Okay.
So if it goes for an hour, it might recirculate 120 gallons or so.
Okay.
So that goes on for both sides of this little diffuser bar here. There's 2 diffuser bars in each kit. And this little foot guy it's a pre-manufactured, so you'll just do
Push
it.
off the floor.
Yeah, just holds it off the floor about 4 inches. So those will get hand threaded, hand tight on there, and then those will set. You'll need to actually with this guy, you'll need to run a bushing, a 1/2 inch bushing, 1/2 inch by 1 inch bushing, which one of those is included here, just like so, with a short piece of 1/2 inch, and then this will become a 1 inch air drop right here. So that'll look kind of like that with a short piece of 1/2 inch pipe gluing them together, and that'll allow that 1 inch to come back over there. So all those parts are included for the plumbing in the kit. So we want to screw in the diffuser and make sure they're parallel to this wall right here. So it, from the vertical standpoint, you're looking down the bars running parallel. Let's see here. We want to verify that the clarifier T assembly, which is here, is vertical and level. The line feed for the airlift running back here on our sludge return across the top here. There will be this sits here right above the liquid level. This 1 inch pipe. This is always pre-installed, whether you buy, no matter who you buy the tank from. Some of our tank suppliers actually will pre-assemble some of this stuff from sound placement. This for sure will be in there, so it'll be a little bit of plumbing. So you'll take this on the 1 inch line, and sometimes it looks like there's an extra fitting in here. And I've had guys say, "What's this all about?" And it'll cost that 2 inch fitting, but in reality, what we want to do when we're coming back on our 1 inch line here, we want to have a short section of 2 inch PVC. So that's what I'll show you here. And this gives us a little ability. So here's our return inlet. Make sure that sweep is going back down like that. So we have about 12 inches of length here to sweep him back down into the trash tank. But we have an adapter so we're adapting over to from 1 inch to 2 inch. We also want a short section of 2 inch like so, just like that, inside that return back into the trash tank. And the reason for that is the NSF test didn't catch this, and yours truly was excitedly installing the first system, and I unfortunately they hadn't caught this. We were sitting like this when that first blast hit, blew sewage right up in my face. And yeah, so we realized that what we needed was a short section of 2 inch pipe to allow that pressure to diffuse. So that water, when it's blasting through, it actually starts to kind of spiral, and then it just goes right down into that outlet T. It'll gurgle up a little bit, but it won't splash up 3 or 4 feet like it could if you didn't have this short section of 2 inch. So there's an extra bushing or an extra coupler in the kit, and that's what it's for.
Do they come pre-installed even when you buy plastic tanks?
Most of the plastic tank manufacturers will pre-assemble most of this
Okay.
for you, and it's kind of nice that way for the plastic tanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I was talking to the guys at HB Jagger and they pre-assembled
Yeah.
a plastic tank.
Yeah. It's hard to climb into that tank and do that. The concrete tank's a little bit more accessible, but
Yeah.
you can do it, actually reach in from above on all the concrete tank. The plastic tank, because of the way that tank access is, you actually need to run it over and down. So someone needs to get in there and install on the wall. They'll put an orifice shield for that pipe to snap into, which is much easier to do before the tank's installed. So that gets us back to the installation of the skim. The low air alarm. Inside the blower housing, we've got our blower, and on the side of our blower, there's a little barbed fitting here. It's a brass fitting, and this gives us constant pressure at the blower, no matter whether we're on skim or main cycle. So this barb here inside the blower housing will have to adapt over to our our half-inch PVC running back to the panel. So the panel, if we inside the blower housing, you're going to get about 5 feet of rubber tubing like this. That's actually PVC, 1/8 inch PVC tubing. So you're going to adapt inside the blower housing from this barb fitting over to 1/2 inch PVC, and the parts are in here for this. So you'll get a little barb fitting, a little brass barb like that, and then there's a 1/2 inch little adapt from the brass to PVC. So you're going to have him, you cut a short section of this off of there. Now you're going to adapt over to 1/2 inch PVC, just like so. Now this needs to go through the riser and back along your trench to wherever your panel is. And so typically you're going to have back at the panel, so you'll run this pipe in the trench, and then you'll 90 up at the panel. And the part of the pipe that's going to be exposed to sunlight should be UV rated. And if you understand UV rating, that gray conduit is UV rated. Yeah.
The other system, Whitewater kind of has the same.
Yeah. So you'd run a 1/2 inch conduit back. So here's our panel that comes with every system, and this is just kind of my demonstration here. But it has, pardon that. We have we've drilled a 3/4 inch hole in the bottom of this, and inside the panel, so you're going to adapt over to the identical little sequence of brass to PVC adapter that will slide right through a 3/4 inch hole in the bottom of the panel. So if your gray conduit comes up your wall, just like so, that would the bell end of your conduit, or else your adapter, your coupler, will slide right over that. This is the same diameter as 1/2 inch PVC. So then you pinch it real nice and tight against the base of the panel, put a little bead of silicone around it, and it'll be nice and watertight. So that allows us to run our low pressure line, which if the blower would stop blowing, we have it right into this. So there's a little cinch collar right on the front of there, and you can see that. Once you pop him inside there's a little nipple in there, and then that cinch collar slides over and cinches down and locks it in place. So that's our low air switch system. I do recommend we actually try to get a little loop, something like that, so there's a little bit of slack in there. So that it gives a little bit of movement, because the electrician's going to come in later. He's going to start wanting to drill holes for his wires coming in. And if you just go the path of the shortest distance, he might hit it with his drill bit. But if you give him a little room, he can slide it out of his way and drill his holes and do his work. So.
And is that going to like a motherboard or?
So you're going to have a couple of circuits coming into here from your main panel at the house. You know, the pump circuit and a control circuit. Yeah. And I'll go through the wiring here shortly in the next few. We might get into the next section here. Yeah. So that's kind of how the low air alarm works. We want to make sure on the low air alarm that does where you come through the side of that riser. Make sure that when you come through, make sure it's either braced from below with like a piece of pressure treated or something. We don't show it on this picture, but if you have a conduit or something that comes out of your blower housing after backfill or on backfill, you don't want that to get to where it's going to settle and stress and strain our grommet. We provide these grommets with the system. So this is a 1/2-inch polylock pull-through grommet. It's a one-sided grommet. And these are really nice. I don't know if you use them. If you don't, you should look at them. This is for the 1/2-inch size on the back. It says 1.3 inches. That's 1 5/16. So when 1 5/16 hole saw, drill it through that riser from the inside, and that'll pop in there nice and snug. So when you push that pipe through, that 1/2-inch pipe through there, it'll flex, because this is tapered, it'll flex it and seal it off nice and solid. So those are provided. The 1/2-inch size are provided with the kit. There's usually actually an extra 1 or 2 of those in the kit, so you'll have spares. But on your electrical conduit for your plug-in on your blower, make sure your electrician does it. Either you provide it for him, or make sure that's a really good, secure, watertight connection. And we'll go through that electrical part of that here shortly. That should take care of the installation of the low-wear alarm. So the replacement of components. Components should be carefully inspected before replacement. Never install damaged components. Use factory replacement. Basically, the main thing is for the NuWater stuff, the blower and the diffusers and the control panel are kind of the only things that are real special to NuWater, right? The rest of this is parts you could make up at the hardware store if you ever needed to. But the parts that are most likely to give you trouble or problems are these parts like this, the blower and the panel. These diffusers are expanded poly. They're like a plastic with a microfracture in them. They make real small bubbles. And I'm not sure exactly how they build these, but I believe it's like an expanded plastic where they actually core drill out. And if you look at it real close, there's just these tiny little fractures. But that is something that they're specific to NuWater. You can't just go find these very easily. So we recommend using manufacturer's parts, and all of our distributors carry all these things for that.